How are you?
Good. Super excited to talk to you today about how you help clients engage their employees for future hiring and find top talent, and how that all works with your framework at Building People and what you do.
Yeah.
So we could just like jump in if you want to add anything.
What I would say is that it's probably one of the things that people talk about the most is that there's no good people out there, and I'm like, that's bullshit. But how can you really ensure that you're getting the right people in the door so that if you do all the other pieces that we've talked about in these previous videos, and then you keep just hiring people with the pulse, it's going to be a mess. So I'm excited to chat with you about that and see what questions you have.
Cool. All right, so first question would be, how does the employee experience start like before they're hired? Like, how are you helping clients like realize that the experience comes before the actual like you're getting a job?
Yeah, great point. I think something that we learned from our PR and marketing agency that we worked with at Building People was the importance of building your brand as an organization, and that very much aligns, we were doing it from a clientele perspective, but it's just as important to do from an employee, like hiring employees.
Mm-hmm.
And so for better or worse, there is the aspect of, if you were to go out to the market and talk to people about your organization, or people were talking about your organization, what are they saying?
Yeah.
And are they saying that it was, an awesome experience? Or are they saying that you do really cool projects? Are they saying that the other people that you get to work with are really, really smart and educated? What is that brand that folks are talking about out in the market? And so there is the kind of upfront work of just at least having some of that available. That could be on your website. That could be LinkedIn or Instagram, some sort of social media. You could always go on people's podcasts. There's a lot of great podcasts here in Massachusetts, but no matter where the location is, kind of getting on construction-specific podcasts for the folks that you'd want to hire, and be mindful of what you want your brand to look like. The other big piece is how can you build that employee experience is thinking about your leaders and how they are coming across and the brands that they are building, most likely on LinkedIn, around, what would it be like to work with this person, and how are they kind of continuing to connect with folks at different levels, so that when you do have a need, you have a few people who are already interested because you have a really great place to work. And it doesn't have to be daily, it doesn't even have to be weekly. Mm-hmm. Honestly, there has to be some level of connection that you're regularly building. And in this industry, if you can do it in person and like going to those networking events and not even being on social media, great. Mm-hmm. Just acknowledging that social media does add an easier component to it.
Right. And you'll find way more people if someone's already heard of your brand, or maybe read something exciting, or there's something out there that's like, oh wait, actually that's pretty cool. And so brand recognition is huge.
One of our clients, they would have interest from employees, or potential employees, and they would send them a podcast that they were on to listen to before the interview. That helps with a few different opportunities, right? It's going to say, hey, did you listen to it? And now you have a way to say, are you interested? How interested are you? Did you take a little bit of extra time to listen to this podcast? And then also you have more of a conversation, and that person might have, people get a little nervous when they're going to an interview, so it gives them a little bit of ammo or something to talk with folks about, which ideally can make the conversation.
Yeah, a little icebreaker.
Yeah, 100%.
Super fun. So in the same idea of that, how do you help your clients build programs that are attracting the right people? So brand recognition is one thing. And if somebody hears great things about your company, that's awesome. But how are you helping your clients shift to make sure that they have programs fitting to get the right people to come interview and work for them?
Yeah, and so are you saying the programs are potentially like training programs? Are they kind of just like overall cultural pieces?
I think let's start with culture first, maybe.
Okay.
And as long as it doesn't take away from another piece of our framework.
Yeah.
And if it does, then we can skip it and go straight to training. But
I think it is helpful. I love data, for better or worse. But I think there are some aspects that when you're looking to bring new folks in, it's helpful to really put the information on paper. And so if you're a 25-person company and 95% of your employees are over 50, and you want to switch up the culture and get a lot of fresh, young, inexperienced talent in the door, you're really going to have to look at, what do I need to do differently? Or how can I sell this to someone with the idea that, hey, you're not going to have a new bestie, maybe, or maybe you are, but they're just going to be 30 years older than you, and that's amazing. Love it. Here for that. But realistically,
for all of the wisdom that you may need.
If you are hoping to like change up your culture or acknowledging, hey, we've got a lot of people that are going to be retiring, and so we've got to get a new kind of group in, you might have to think about that from a financial perspective. Okay, we've got to actually hire a few more people than we were anticipating, because we're going to have to intentionally change up the culture a little bit there. On the flip side, you could have a lot of junior people. You could be a more junior organization, newer organization, and you're like, I need to bring in a really experienced person. And so then you've got to acknowledge to them, hey, you're going to have to be spending a lot of time training and upskilling some of these folks. And so it's this might be different from what you're used to. One of our clients hired someone in safety that had been on the same project for 3 or 4 years, and then they switched to this client where they had to go to 20 different project sites over a 2-week time frame. And those conversations ideally have to happen. You have to have some understanding and clarification to the employee or future employee of what the project is going to look like, so that they understand, whoa, that is vastly different. Mm-hmm. And you're able to have questions and understand how this culture shock potentially for them could shift, whether or not they're going to be a good fit for it, or and even if they are, but they might have some culture shock, like how can you then plan appropriately to give them the best effort? And so that could look like, again, hiring a few people for the junior folks, hiring a few people at the same time, so they have people that they're learning with and they don't feel that they're kind of alone in that world. For the more senior folks, ensuring that you're giving them the capacity to coach and mentor, because it's going to take a lot more time than maybe they're used to, and you want them to be able to do all the things, but actually being able to coach and mentor will have value. And then from that safety person, it's acknowledging this is going to be a huge culture shock. Let's ensure that we give them the time and capacity. And we also might have to think about how strategically their role has maybe shifted between where it was before and where it is going to be now.
All right, so in terms of training, okay, so if say you just landed a new client, you're trying to build some sort of training program for them to engage future hires, and they're trying to set up a program maybe for internal hiring and like getting people from inside higher up, how do you help them even start? Like, where do they start with building like a training program to train their people to maybe?
So we talked about some of that in one of the original videos, just overall company-wide. But from a hiring perspective, if you are wanting to hire junior folks, you can build out co-op programs and be really intentional on what you're going to offer them, so that they can really see and experience what the company is going to be like. And then also give them small snippets that if you want them to come back, they'll be able to hit the ground running more quickly once they've started, right? So that's one option. Internships, co-ops are often the same, and I'll just acknowledge the elephant in the room, that the interns could be up for like a summer or a shorter period of time, whereas some co-ops will do an entire semester or 8-month time frame. So again, giving them some small snippet and continuing to stay engaged with them throughout the year. So many folks from a hiring perspective, especially those junior people, are now getting offers in October and November before they graduate. And so you have got to make these decisions faster than you've ever made before. Other organizations, some of the larger construction companies build out rotational programs. And so they're thinking about engaging future hires right from the beginning, but thinking about a long-term plan, that they're going to have them rotate between project management, estimating, and field ops, usually through a 2 to 3 year program. Some people have shrunk it down, and you could even do that if you are getting an intern in early. The first summer, could they do field? The second summer, could they do estimating? The third summer, could they do project management? Big recommendation is usually around spending as much time out in the field as possible. They'll do the best learning there, but you can be really intentional in building out some of those programs. And even if you're a smaller organization, you're like, I can't give 3 years to 3 different people. We can't even hire that many. We don't need to hire that many people. Say that you hire one, but could you intentionally do something for their first year if they are that junior person to really get them up to speed faster from a hiring perspective? And then one last thing I'll say around this piece is one of our clients was adamant that he's like, we need to hire ass kickers. And I'm like, love it.
Great.
There are pros and cons, right? Of like, if everyone were that way, we'd be having a different conversation. Maybe we can maybe get rid of a couple.
Right.
But at the same time, the folks that you're hiring, it's important to be intentional about the structure that you are putting in place as a business. And I think that's what we are constantly trying to do at Building People, right? Is that we're trying to build these structures and foundations for your people to be successful no matter what. So it's not just necessarily a training or an initiative, but how can we build out processes, so to speak, so that if the people that you hire are intentional, they work for the culture that you are trying to build, and they are given the resources they need to be successful. And so that could be, for the ass kickers, that they maybe have some limitations or some boundaries that they have to stay within. And that could be that they also have a manager who is going to constantly check in on them from an accountability perspective in the opposite direction. Not of the hey, we haven't heard from you, haven't gotten these things done, but from a hold on a moment, you're going too fast and you're making mistakes. And so there's got to be these acknowledgments and these kind of accountability check-ins for people to be successful along the way. Otherwise, you're going to spend up so much time on the engaging future hires. We have it as the final, there are 2 E's in people, right? And so we technically could have put it earlier on. We very intentionally put it on at the end, because if you do all of those other things right, ideally you don't have to spend as much time hiring for future leaders until you're growing and it's now you need more and more people. And then in that case, ideally you're hiring maybe the more junior folks for a role that doesn't exist yet, because the other people in your organization are continuing to grow into the positions that they want, which is really everyone's goal.
And you hear time is money, right? And you hear all this stuff, and you hear people are using, recruiting firms and,
which are super expensive.
I'm going to spend $1 million on this recruiting firm for them to find me this one person or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about how maybe we're not saying anything bad about recruiters.
No, especially since you have
I am married to one.
Yeah, who's very good at this job.
But they're not necessarily in charge of building that pipeline of employees that you're looking for. So can you talk a little bit about that piece of it?
Kind of speaking to the brand piece earlier, I think a huge part goes to the leadership building their own personal brands and getting out there about what the company and the organization as a whole is doing. Then you're going to find those folks who are interested in that and want to have the conversations. My request or recommendation to executives is if someone wants to meet you and connect with you, as often as you
Right.
possibly can say yes. I know, I understand time is money, as you just said, but there are folks that are interested in your organization, and if you give them that time, they're now, I don't want to say in your back pocket because that kind of could come off wrong, but they're there. Like, if you continue to show interest in some folks, those are the people that aren't going to put on LinkedIn that they're open to network, right? And you're going to be able to get them when the time is right, when you need them. You're going to then reach out and say, hey, we talked 6 months ago. The opportunity is now here. We've continued to chit chat back and forth. Are you interested? We'd love to. We don't even want to interview anyone else, or whatever that process might be. It feels really good for them as the employee feeling wanted, and will inevitably save you a lot of time and hair pulling from having to interview a bunch of people that probably aren't the right fit. And usually by the time that a construction company needs somebody, they needed someone yesterday. And so they're rushing to do it, whereas if you're continuing to have these conversations, you're able to kind of flip that switch more quickly. I do think, if you have a recruiting department, great. Many of the companies that we know don't. And so if you have one, great. Give folks, make sure that they're in your list. But if not, it's got a lot of it has to be on management and building out their own brand. Personally.
So do you help clients build out a hiring process to enhance things? And then if you're helping them, if you have best hiring practices, say whatever, then that kind of can help lead them into the process of knowing who to pick, who to go find, whatever, and then ends up building a really good culture in the company because everyone feels empowered to be able to do the recruiting or hiring, so to speak. Can you just touch a little bit on how those best practices that you would maybe implement would help kind of enhance company culture?
So I love data. So I want to look at tell me all the folks that this is always a painful one, but let's look at the folks that didn't stay at your organization and why did they leave? How long were they here? Where did they come from? And how much have you spent on new folks in the last year? That data, again, I want to hurt because I want it to hurt enough that you want to do something, you want to make a change. So once you have that information, there maybe, ideally, are going to be some trends, some acknowledgements that, okay, we've been doing it this way and it hasn't been working, so we need to make a shift. And then saying, okay, based on what we know now, what will we, not what would we do, but what will we do differently?
Action like that.
Future hiring. What questions are we going to ask, and how can we ensure that we're setting folks up for success? Again, I think I say this maybe regularly at the company, but we spend a lot of time and effort, and from a recruiting perspective, thousands of dollars potentially if we're using staffing agencies to hire these folks, and then we just throw them in, or we say, do it exactly as I say for 5 seconds. Maybe 5 days, maybe 5 days. And then we're great, now take care of it for me. And when they mess up, when they don't do it exactly as you would have done because they have no idea how to actually do it, you're screw them, they're dead to me. And I'm hold on a minute, now you're gonna open up the recruiting portal again. You're gonna go that route, and you've missed out on an opportunity to scale someone up who could and probably is amazing because you didn't give them enough time to really acclimate to your organization and the way that you all do things and how you want it done here. Yes, the overall concepts of construction are probably the same at every organization, but it's different and nuanced at every place. So, yes.
Oh, love it. How can we connect this pillar of your people framework to purpose and growth for a company?
That's a really good question. You caught me off guard a little bit. I think it's important to know from the whole people framework, we want to understand the business goals of an organization. ideally, when we're asking for business goals, when we're thinking about someone's overall, like the people framework for a company, we ask, what are your business goals? Do you have your mission? Do you have your vision? Do you have all of these pieces in place? The more information you already have, the easier your job becomes when it comes to recruiting, because you can say, hey, this is how we're different. A lot of values in the construction industry are similar, and so can you acknowledge that there's something a little bit different about your company that others maybe don't have or don't focus on? Maybe it's even just proximity. But how can you acknowledge what your overall purpose and vision is as an organization and kind of continuously share that out? And then also seeing when you're meeting with your employees, what is theirs? What is going on in their current lives that is really, really important to them? And this is where like HR folks would probably shake a finger at me. They're like, I want to know as much without asking illegal questions in an interview. I want to understand as much about this person as possible so that I can understand what I can do to ensure their success long term at a company. Because again, hiring is expensive, and so my goal is not to just constantly have to rehire because I'm doing a bad job of it. My goal is to hire and then grow folks within any organization.
Right.
And if we can do that, you can sink your teeth in and spend a little bit more time on recruiting because you're doing it less. It might take some practice. You might have to do it a couple of times, make some mistakes, see where the rub or the issues lie, and at least acknowledge it. Write it down in that book again that I want you to feel painful in, and think about how you might change it going forward.
Do you find that most clients that you're working with like look at you and you're like, okay, what is your purpose? Do you think they're like, what do you mean?
Oh God,
yeah,
Krista.
It's to make money. Like, but do they look at you and you're like, no. Like, once we set a purpose and like it's visual, we like your employees know it, you know it. Do you feel like once they set it, that it kind of like helps that culture of the company?
I think it sets a precedent for SOPs and what's important. It sets a precedent for so many other pieces. One of our clients we're trying to get there, we want their overall kind of like mission to be to the very last detail. And so if you think about what that means on a project, if you think about what that means, how much information you regularly have to have. If you think about what, give me an example, then you're able to ask people questions in the interview. Give me an example of when you were on a project and you had to stay on until the very last detail, or you had to be super specific to the very last detail. Like, I want all of the information. Go deep up with me. And you can kind of really get to understand how someone would fit in with the other folks that are already doing that and living it in your day to day.
Great. Awesome. All right, here's a crazy question. Are there any...
Don't hit me.
Are there any unique, interesting hiring processes that any of our clients have used that they found super valuable, that is like completely out of the box, that if you recommended it to a new client, they would be like, people do this?
Yes, I'm so glad that you asked that question. So, trial hiring. Basically being like, hey, maybe it's part of the interview process, or saying, we want to move forward, but in terms of our situation, we want to have a one-day trial, both for you as the potential future employee and for us as the employer. It's kind of a win-win. We're going to come in for a day, we're going to pay you, and we're going to kind of we're going to have you shadow us around. You're going to see what's happening on a job site. You're going to meet with the team. You're going to go with them for an entire day. And so you do have to do a quick little paperwork, right? Any sort of hiring paperwork, but it is truly meant to just be for one day. And then after that, ideally, you're deciding kind of at the end of that day, if not, probably within 24 or 48 hours, you're going to want to do it quickly. I would say it's not something that you're bringing 3 different people on. it is the kind of final check to say, okay, we think
Like
that
they've
they're
had
the right
maybe
fit.
a couple interviews or had
Yeah.
talked to a few people in leadership, and they're like, I like this person, but let's do this final test to.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And also, right, they haven't potentially given their notice to the other
Right.
another organization that they're working with, so they're able to see, you know what, I kind of liked working here, and this is going to be way too different. Ideally, if you're the organization, you are hoping to woo them
Yeah.
and get them to make that decision. But it was an idea that I had a while ago of like I don't know why companies don't do that, and then one of our clients had when we started with them had already been doing it and found it incredibly
That's awesome.
valuable. So highly recommend
That's so
doing
cool.
that.
That's
Definitely.
amazing. That's really cool. That's like a unique experience for the employee trying to be hired to say they have a couple of offers from different companies, and they're like, you know what? I love that they trusted me to throw me in for a day and see what happened, and like I'm gonna pick them. So it kind of
That would be the
amazing.
hope. Yeah.
That's so cool. All right, so to wrap this up, in our final E of our people framework,
It's the end.
Engaging future hires, attracting top talent to keep a thriving team. Would you say there are like 3 bullets that we could take out of it? You know, you're building your brand at the company level and personal level. You need a structure in place to know who you're going to hire, and then set them up for success instead of failure. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
What would be like a third?
I think the third one would be ensuring that you're taking advantage of the data that you automatically already have, spending a little bit of time up front to save you a lot of headaches down the line. So ensuring that you are constantly looking at that information as data and as an opportunity to learn and grow, and then making changes down the line. Those would be my 3.
Love it. So great.
Thank you.
Thanks for chatting.